Iranian cinema for decades has dazzled and enthralled critics and cinephiles, winning prestigious awards and becoming underground darlings. And even Jean-Luc Godard has said, "Film begins with D.W. Griffith and ends with Abbas Kiarostami," widely considered to be one of the greatest Iranian filmmakers. But despite this high praise, Iranian cinema has, for the most part, remained an oft-forgotten treasure that only film aficionados have marked on the map. However, this perception changed in 2011 when Asghar Farhadi's film, A Separation, was introduced into the cinematic landscape. While the tendency in Iranian films of the past had been towards the pensive and poetic with sparse dialogue, heavy use of visual metaphors, and non-linear or experimental narratives, A Separation is a heavily dialogue-driven film. Its themes of dissolving bonds and the disconnect between the middle and working class are poignant in a time when the spread and prevalence of mass communication has not mended the rifts in a world that remains decidedly fractured. However, even with its universal message, A Separation is a wholly Iranian film that can be viewed as a rich and layered character drama that focuses primarily on the dissolution of marriage between the progressive Simin and her more conservative soon-to-be ex-husband, Nader. Yet the narrative shifts abruptly to a legal dispute between Nader and Reza, a woman taking care of his ill father, after she is accused of stealing money. In this scenario, the nuances of class and societal divisions are adroitly presented, wherein each character is given equal weight in terms of expressing their side of the story, as compiling miscommunications and a deep-rooted class divide start to give more and more importance to the issues at hand. But beyond this, the thematic message of the film may transcend the classism and marital issues apparent on the story's surface, in that they may potentially allude to ideas of Iranian national identity and the turbulence of the country's political past. It can be seen to draw visual and thematic parallels to two previous Iranian political movements, one a faux progressive, and the other a more grassroots uprising that originated outside of the political system. Much like the characters in the film, these two movements existed in opposition of one another, lionizing one class against the other. In 1963, a movement dubbed the White Revolution was meant to give power back to the rural and working class, emboldening the people often forgotten, through a series of wide-reaching reforms while neglecting the people of the city and the middle class. However, even though this movement was touted as seeking to remove traditionalist thinking, it was bred and built within an ulterior political agenda and the perpetuation of a traditionalist kingship. The White Revolution, therefore, contributed to the rise of a conservative and fundamentalist mindset, creating a schism within the Iranian culture and leading to far-reaching consequences that came to the surface in 1979 and still reside today. Conversely, the Green Revolution of 2009 was a reformation made by the middle class and the youth within major city centers that never took hold among the rural class or those who were more conservative-leaning, and therefore ultimately a movement that was unsuccessful. With all this said, how does it relate to A Separation? We believe that these two movements and their respective color schemes are intrinsic to how the film operates and explores their themes. Nader's elderly and senile father can be seen as the head of this domineering ideology that is slowly losing power, the reasoning that once held it in place now slipping away. The characters who are placed in charge of nurturing and caring for him are the more conservative or devoutly religious of their respective pairings. Nader's wife Simin in general rejects the traditionalist views of her husband and strives instead for a place of equality, one which is routinely denied to her. We see the room of the dementia-ridden father features mostly white decor and furniture, and his devoted son often wears white when attending to him. This whiteness, however, is not restricted to his sleeping quarters, but also creeps into the various societal institutions, such as the courtrooms and waiting halls, and the home of the religious Reza and her husband. The influence of this dominant ideology can also be seen in the white hair coverings of Reza's daughter, who is seemingly fated to remain within this traditionalist institution. One scene in particular succinctly alludes to the cultural and societal divides. As Nader washes his ailing father, the entire scene is drenched in whiteness, from the clothes to the walls of the bathroom itself. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the color green is visible in the background of various scenes, a detached reminder of the movement that recently took hold in Iran. However, the most noticeable of these green tones are aptly used in the kitchen of the apartment, a location so often used in media and literature as a symbol of feminine oppression now takes on new meaning with a fresh coat of paint, as this area becomes an ironic setting of liberation, where within its green confines, women lash back at the patriarchal figures of their societal institution. From Temre instructing her father how to use the laundry machine, to Samin fighting back against her husband's refusal to grant her a divorce, and even the initial fight over money between Reza and Nader begins in the kitchen. However, beyond color, the film also explores these elements through its use of shot selection and framing. Women are often shown to be behind glass and mirrors, and much as we saw in the thematically similar film Carol, these seem to reflect the overbearing and orthodox institutions around them. It also suggests a barrier between them and the male figures in their lives, a disunion that is becoming increasingly difficult to negotiate. This divide is also seen in the use of doors and entrances. While they can be seen as a metaphor for transition and the potential for a positive future, in a separation, numerous compositions are presented through doors, which are repeatedly obstructed by individuals and oftentimes closed, again showing the division between class and gender, and the lack of progression past these barriers. These two elements are ultimately combined within the events that drive the narrative in the second half of the film. As Reza is pushed out from the entranceway, the action of her falling, or what truly happened, is denied to the viewer, as the windows of the green door are obscured. The White Revolution earned its name due to its bloodless nature, and likewise the acts of violence committed against Reza, which cause her to lose her child, are not shown on screen. In denying us the clarity of seeing for ourselves, the film presents us with the same dilemma as it does its characters, allowing doubt and skepticism to prosper in place of certainty. Also within the shot selections themselves, the characters seem to be deliberately disconnected, the camera very rarely shooting two people together straight on. When it does so almost ironically, as in the opening scene where the two-shot is of a married couple who are appealing to be divorced. Furthermore, this is illustrated by the couple's daughter, Tamre, whom Nader continuously looks back at or views through obstructions throughout the film. While he is trying to empower her, it is much like the movement which began in 1963, a false progressiveness entrenched within the dominant ideology. This is cemented when she lies to the judge, abetting the inherent corruption and moral hypocrisy within this system by supporting her father's false account of events. Appropriately, she is then seen entering a white car, clad in a white chador. Yet, the film stresses that this divide is not exclusively an Islamic issue, as she brings up the class divide within the Sassanid Empire, which was the last Persian dynasty before Islam became the primary religion of Iran. While textually, A Separation is a film about division and miscommunication, the omniscient view of the cinematic gaze permits us to see the underlying connections and similarities that the conflicting parties share, both families trying to raise a daughter and struggling to provide an income, as well as the issues within their respective marriages. The film suggests that the separation that exists between these groups or individuals, as much as seemingly distinct notions such as right and wrong, is perhaps a mere matter of perspective, and the fashion in which these ideas are presented to us can vastly change the way in which they affect our lives. Thus, Farhadi's film stresses the need for empathy and understanding in a world that seeks as ever to tear us apart.